Thanks for watching our video. Make sure to subscribe to the Old Stone Church YouTube channel.
Did you hear the old story about young Reverend Timms who just finished seminary, he got ordained, and he was going to serve his favorite kind of church, a little small town congregation. He felt so blessed to be going to this new church. He was looking forward to growing and learning and loving with these people and serving God in this small town. First day on the job, however, he got a knock at the door to his office, and he opened up the door, and there at the door was a contingency from the session. 3 stern, sober-looking elders, not a welcome casserole in hand, not a kind word at all. They burst into his office and said, "Reverend Timms, we need to talk to you. We have a problem." "Well, what's the problem?" said Reverend Timms. "It's Mr. Johnson." "Mr. Johnson? What's the problem with Mr. Johnson?" "Well, Reverend Timms, let us tell you. Mr. Johnson has more money than anyone in our congregation. He has more money than anyone in our entire town. Mr. Johnson has more money than anyone in the entire county. And he gives less than anyone else in our church." Well, right away, Reverend Timms puts up his hand in a stop kind of formation. "Wait a minute," he says. "I'm your new pastor. I'm here to help you with spiritual problems, spiritual concerns. I'm not here to talk to you about money. If you have an issue with money and Mr. Johnson and his money, go talk to a banker or talk to the finance committee, but don't talk to me. I'm a pastor. I'm here to deal with spiritual things." Well, they harumphed and walked out of his office feeling angry and frustrated. They hadn't been heard and they hadn't been responded to, not in the way they'd hoped that the new pastor might respond. So they came back the second day, knocked on his door, opened up to Reverend Timms in his office, and they said, "Reverend Timms, we need to talk to you about Mr. Johnson. He has a spiritual problem." "A spiritual problem?" said Mr. Timms. "Well, I'm here to listen. Tell me what Mr. Johnson's spiritual problem is." They put hands on hip, and in unison they all said, "His spiritual problem is he's cheap." When I was in seminary many years ago, I had a professor who said, "When you get to your new church, remember this. There are 2 things that people in your congregation do not want to hear you preach about: sex and money." Well, guess what? Today I'm not going to talk to you about sex. Actually, I'm not going to talk to you about money either, not in particular. I'm going to talk to you about something much, much bigger than our money. I want to talk to you about what we do in joy and in gratitude in response to the amazing grace of God at work in our lives. I want to talk to you about what we do in joy and with gratitude in response to what we've been given by the grace of God. I'm talking about stewardship. After all, isn't that what stewardship is? What we do in joy and with gratitude in response to what we've been given by the grace of God, and not just one day a year, but 365 days a year, and in every moment of our lives, what we do in joy and with gratitude in response to what we've been given by grace from God. Now, I've said that 3 times. There's a reason I said that 3 times. I'm trying to anchor it in our thoughts so that we might remember what stewardship is. It's what we do every single day with joy and gratitude in response to what we've been given by the grace of God. Well, think about at least the second part of that statement for a moment. What we do in response to what we've been given by the grace of God. I don't know about you, but I tend to think that everything I have has been given by the grace of God. That's what we Christians preach. It's what we believe. At least it's what we try to wrap our heads around. The earth belongs to the Lord and all that's in it. So whatever we have has been given by God and no one else. What we have, all that we are, it's a gift from God. It's a gift of grace. We had very little to do with it. Now, I know that rubs our American culture the wrong way sometimes because we live in a world that wants to think that everything we have, all that we are, is a response to our own hard work. I got where I got into this world as a result of my own determination, my own hard work. I'm a self-made man, I hear people say, or I'm a self-made woman. Everything I have, I labored for with my own two hands. Well, if you happen to be one of those people who've been seduced by that kind of self-determining culture that exists well beyond the doors of our congregation in the world at large, let me challenge you for a moment. I want you to think for a brief moment about just where it is that you were born in this world. Most of you, not all of you, but most of you were born here in the United States of America, the land of opportunity. Or you've come here to the land of opportunity, America. You had very little to do with where you were born, and yet consider for a moment the odds that you would be born in this great nation. I considered it yesterday while I was working on this message. I did a little research. I thought about calling Lance. He's a mathematician. I thought, Lance, can you tell me a calculation that would show me the odds of being born in the United States, land of opportunity, as compared to anywhere else in the world? But I didn't need to call Lance. I Googled it. And you know, there are numerous statistical sites that basically say that about 131 million babies are born into the world every year. 131 million babies. That's a lot of diapers, let me tell you, folks. 131 million babies born into the world every year. That's almost half the population of the United States of America. Every single year, 131 million. Do you know how many are born here in the United States of America? About 4 million people a year are born into the land of opportunity. And I didn't need my very good friend Lance to tell me how to figure out the percentage of 4 million out of 131 million. It's about 3.05% chance. Now, admittedly, that's better odds than winning the lottery. But think about it. We had about a 3.05% chance of being born here in the land of opportunity. Or turn it upside down, the rest of the world had about a 97% chance of being born somewhere else. That's 3% of the babies born every year are born here. The majority are born in other places. So if I think of myself as a self-made man, I did everything I did to get where I am today. I ignore the simple fact that I have had a very small chance of being born in this great nation, this land of opportunity. You know, there's an old saying, right? Give a man a fish, he'll eat for the day. Teach a man a fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. Let me tell you, that is wrong. It's not true. You teach a person how to fish, and if the fishing conditions are terrible, they're still going to starve. But 4 million people got born in a nation where the fishing conditions are pretty darn good. 97% are born in places where the fishing conditions aren't quite as good as they are here. There's a sense sometimes that we have got where we've got to by our own labors, our own wise decisions, our prudent investments. But if we think that way, we're overlooking the fact that we've been born where we've been born. And even if you weren't born in the United States of America, Even if you're living somewhere else where the rest of the 127 million babies are living around the world, you've still been born. You've received the gift of life. You've received the gift of a new breath each second that you are alive. I used to teach at the Savannah College of Art and Design, an exceptional art school and wonderful students. But every now and then I'd get these students who'd be standing up to give a speech in my class, and they'd be kind of puffed up with a kind of arrogance. I'm a self-made man. I got here by, I believe in hard work and getting where you're going to get in this world by your own determination. I'm a self-made woman. I got where I got based on everything. And then I usually say, you're a self-made man, are you? Who's paying your tuition? Now, some of them say, well, I have a scholarship. Well, where'd those scholarship funds come from? The generous spirit of an alumni association, I believe. So here you are as a college student. You think you've got where you've got, but the fact of the matter is, just to be here at this college where tuition's at least $30,000 a year, that's not counting your rent, you've already received help from parents and family and an alumni association. And then I'd ask people to do what I'd challenge you to do if you think it's all about you. When you get home today, I'd like you to go to a mirror, and I'd like you to undo your shirt or lift up your shirt and look in the mirror. And staring back at you in the mirror will be your belly button. And that belly button, whether you have an innie or an outie, or whether you're one of these very rare folks who had theirs sewed up when they were born, you have a little scar there. Whether you have an innie or an outie, a little scar, I want you to look and see that belly button and remember that that belly button is a consummate reminder that you did not come into this world without the grace of God working through your mother. When you were born, you came into this world physically attached to another human being. Through that umbilical cord, your mother's blood brought energy and it brought nutrients and oxygen. It brought life into you. There's no way any of us could ever make the claim that we're a self-made man or a self-made woman. And if you think that, then you need to pick up the phone and go call your mom if she's still living and say, thanks, Mom, for bringing me into this world. Only by the grace of God through you. And then after you were born, your mother and likely your father fed you and nurtured you and loved you and tried to plow the future open for you so you could have more opportunities. They wiped your nose. They wiped other places south. They did all sorts of things. And there were other people around them who were helping them. They had their families and their church communities all helping you become the person you are. All that we have and all that we are comes to us by the grace of God through others. And if you still don't believe that, let's talk afterwards. Because I believe at the heart of stewardship, at least in part, is that profound belief that we live under what's called the dispensation of God's grace, that God's got us covered and God has had us covered since the beginning. And all those things we've done along the way, the bad choices, the mistakes that really could have destroyed our lives, have been healed and forgiven through God's grace in Jesus Christ. I know I'm in a Presbyterian church, but I need an amen here. All that we have, all that we are, comes by the grace of God. But the other half of that equation is, what do we do about it? The other half of the stewardship equation is, how do we live our lives? How do we respond with joy and in gratitude for all that has been given to us by the grace of God? Now, you can make the choice to do what a lot of people do and hang on to God's grace very tightly, whether it's your money, whether it's your time, your talents. You can hang on to it tightly, but the problem is the tighter you hang on to the grace of God, the love, the gifts, the money, whatever it is, the tighter you hang on, the harder the heart gets. And sooner or later, you might be a very wealthy, lonely person living in a tower. But it's when we open up our hands and we begin to share the grace of God at work in our lives with others that we start to breathe again. We can live our lives without fear and in peace. There's a lot going on in our world right now, isn't there? A lot of people wanting to whip up a lot of fear in us in America. This people who have been born or live in this land of opportunity. And it seems to me that the counter to that fear that seems to be grabbing hold of us is to give more. It's to live in peace. It's to share the grace of God. You know, there was a small group of us who went to the movie theater yesterday evening to watch the new Queen movie, the Bohemian Rhapsody movie. And sitting through the previews, there were like 6 or 7 movies that they're all apocalyptic end times movies and loud, and we were in the IMAX, so the seats were shaking, and it was just loud, and it was terrifying. And I turned to Beth at one point and I said, these are all the same movie. It's all the end times. The world's in trouble. And one movie in particular started flashing words on the screen to promote itself. And the words were fear, terror, mayhem, chaos. And I'm thinking, I don't want to see this movie. I got enough fear, terror, mayhem, chaos in my day-to-day life. Can't imagine I'd want to pay and go see that on the screen. But it seems to me that the antidote to the fear, the terror, the mayhem, it's to continue serving God with joy and gratitude and love. Because when we do that, that's when we remember that if God's grace was sufficient to bring us into this world, and if God's grace was sufficient all throughout our lives, why wouldn't God's grace continue to be sufficient for us? I don't know about you, but when I was a little kid, we learned that song, Magic Penny. How many of you sang Magic Penny as a kid? Remember? Love is something if you give it away. Give it away. Oh, love is something if you give it away. You end up having more. Sing it with me. For it's just like a magic penny. Hold it tight, you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, you'll have so many. There'll be pennies all over the floor. As a kid, I could never understand, why are there pennies all over the floor? Let's pick them up and use them. Listen, just a few years ago, some friends of ours, Tom and Kathy, wanted to take their kids to church one day. Katie was the same age as my daughter. At that time, she was, I think, 8. She'd just celebrated her 8th birthday. Mama and Papa had come for the weekend. Now Tom and Kathy wanted to take the kids to church just to say thank you to God. And so they packed up the car. Katie and her little sister, Sarah Beth, in the back seat. Mama and Papa had gone back home to East Tennessee. Tom and Kathy lived in Nashville. And as they're backing out of the driveway, Tom's feeling really good. He's proud of his daughters, and it's been such a good weekend. The family had come to celebrate Katie's birthday, and there was no chaos or conflict, which sometimes can happen when family gathers. And he thinks to himself, you know what, I'd like to take the family out to dinner after worship. We'll go out to lunch. It'd be a nice thing to do. He doesn't have any money on him, so he turns to Kathy, and he says, hey, Kathy, do you have any cash for lunch? She said, no, I got the check for worship, and I have $20. He says, I don't think that'll be enough to take us all to lunch. And so he looks in the rearview mirror, and Katie's in the back, and he says, hey, Katie, do you still have that birthday money that Mama and Papa gave you for your birthday? And Katie, right away, she's suspicious. Can you lend me that $10? It was a $10 bill, and Mom's got 20. I think that'll be enough. We all go out to lunch after worship. And she says, He says, come on, Katie, just lend me the money. It's Sunday. I don't want to go to a bank machine. I don't want to do banking on the Lord's day. And she says, And then he starts kind of giving her a lecture on kindness and generosity and sharing. And I mean, he's hitting hard, packing those bags for a guilt trip. And finally, when he's finished his big diatribe, he notices very quiet in the back seat of the car. He looks in the mirror, and there's Katie just trying to hang on without crying, but she can't help it. Tom said a big diamond, shaped tear just rolls down her cheek. And he says, Katie, what's the matter? And she said, that's my birthday money from Mama and Papa. I wanted to take it to church and put it in the golden plate for Jesus. I have a hard time even thinking of that story without crying. Because to me, Katie had this genuine heart, this desire to give in response to what had been given. To me, it was one of the most beautiful stories of stewardship. All that had been given by the grace of God, she now wanted to be like the grown-ups and give it back. All of it, in fact, to God. She wanted to return it. Listen, next Sunday is our consecration Sunday. We do a stewardship campaign once a year, and we bring in our pledge cards. I want you to think about two things. First is that even though we'll make our pledges at this time together, stewardship is every day, 365 days a year. It's how we live our lives with joy and gratitude in response to the amazing gifts that have come to us by the grace of God. But secondly, when you go home today and you're sitting down throughout the week thinking about your pledge for this year, I really want you to be prayerful about it. And that's not just cliche. You always get those letters. Please be prayerful about your... No, I really want you to pray about it. I'd like you to actually get a blank sheet of paper or your notes on your phone or your computer, and I'd like you to start bullet pointing all the blessings that have come to you in your life, beginning with your life, beginning with the breath that you take in, the grace you inhale, and the love that you now have the opportunity to exhale. The very fact that you're breathing and living where you're living, and the opportunities that you have, and the people in your life, the blessings that just keep flowing and flowing like an ever-flowing fountain. Make a list. And then I want you to think about the number you're going to put in your pledge card. And if you didn't get one in the mail, that's probably because you're maybe not a member. We'll get you one. I'll get you a pledge card anytime. And if you forget, don't be ashamed. We'll have blank ones next week. But when you fill out that number, I want you to do it not out of fear or a sense of guilt or shame about, if I don't do this, maybe God won't love me, or that we're going to fail. I want you to do it instead as a response. I want you to say, man, God is good. God is so good, and I've been blessed in so many ways. And then I want you to put the number in there. Whether you've never pledged or it's been the same number for the last few, put a number in there and make it bigger than last year. But whatever you do, do it with the heart of stewardship in mind. Do it like Katie, who had the big diamond tear running down her cheek, saying, I wanted to do this for Jesus. I've been blessed, and I want to respond in that way. Praise be to God. Amen.
Thanks for watching our video. Make sure to subscribe to get the latest and greatest videos from the Old Stone Church. And if you feel blessed by our message, please go to theoldstonechurch.org and click Donate. God bless you today and forever. The Old Stone Church. We've been loving Christ and serving City since 1820.